What is this yellow-handled knife found in Ohio car mechanic's garage? A co-worker was recently shipped this thing by his 80 to 90-year-old grandparents, thinking he would know what it is. The owner was a car mechanic by trade, but was also handy with all types of projects. The blade is beveled on both sides, and the wording says Western. All of the holes in the blade are pretty rusty, but the blade itself is pretty clean, and the wood handle is very light, probably pine. The tape feels like some type of cloth tape and looks like it was added later. Any ideas? It's a World War II US Navy and US Air Force survival life raft knife. These became available on shipments of life rafts in February 1944. This knife was developed for use with the floating rubber survival rafts that were supplied to air crews and naval forces in World War II, and it was intended for cutting rope and line. It was manufactured by Western and was attached with a cord to keep it from becoming lost. It has a wooden handle that causes the knife to float, and it is colored with orange paint to make it as visible as possible. What is this small metal gun replica I recently found in a random charity store? I've researched this a lot and found that these replicas were made a lot during the World War eras, and since the Bodeo was used during World War I and II, it adds up. But then comes the mystery. I realized after putting it on my desk that the gun had a hole in the bottom and the top. From what I can see, they seem to go right the way through. Was this used for something? Some kind of tool? Or is it just a little replica with some mysterious holes in it? Thanks for any help. It was an early type of squirt gun from the early 1900s. They were fair prizes. Yours is missing the squeeze bulb. It squirts water out of the barrel with each squeeze of the bulb. It's a very rare and cool early piece. What is this thing I found in a house I moved into? I found it in an old cabinet left behind by the previous tenants. The block in the lower half is some type of metal, and the clamshell case is flocked in red. I suspect it may be an old razor sharpener or something, but I can't manage to find anything like it online. Any ideas? It's a pocket hand warmer, and that is a compressed charcoal stick in the middle in fiberglass wool. This style of pocket warmer was invented in 1887 by Henry E. Amore of Yokohama, Japan. It's different than this, but the concept is the same. If you light the charcoal and place it back inside, it will heat the fiberglass and the metal, and the unit will expel heat. I sold these to backpackers and hunters in the 70s. I'm kinda nostalgic to smell them again. What is this table for? It was given to me, and it seems like the dragon has a purpose, like it is supposed to be holding something, or there is some piece missing. Any ideas? It's an antique Alfred Dunhill cigar ashtray from the 1920s. It is actually a smoking stand, and the dragon part holds a pot for the ashes, which is covered by the removable tilting ashtray. I got this at a market here in Taiwan. It's got a graph-papered cylinder with a stylus of some nature that can be pressed up against it. It's all contained in a heavy metal box with a glass window, and the case has latches and can be locked. The cylinder paper has a scale from 0 to 100 and is labeled for a week with the days written in French for whatever reason. On the outside, there's a cage-protected apparatus that makes the stylus needle move up and down. The cage is obviously to prevent wild animals from interfering. The cylinder was able to be removed and had a trademark OS on the bottom. This thing has me a bit stumped. There's nothing like it that I can find online. What is this thing? It's a recording hair hygrometer from the early to mid-1900s. It's a device that measures the humidity of the atmosphere by measuring the variation in the length of a human hair in various environmental conditions. Since hair is hygroscopic, it lengthens as the air around it becomes more humid. In hair hygrometers, hair, usually human, is attached to a spring, which in turn is attached to a dial. As the hair lengthens and contracts, the dial reads the relative humidity. I found these old negatives. Can anyone tell me more about them? While cleaning out a wardrobe, I found my old matchbox collection I had when I was a kid 30 years ago. In one of the boxes were these cut-up negatives from what appears to be the British royal family doing some ceremonial thing. I was wondering what they're of and if it's worth getting them developed. I live in New Zealand, so this is kinda strange. Any information would be greatly appreciated. Those are film stills from the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II on June 2nd, 1953. It's a 35mm film, 4-perf, and the black bars on the left are the sound. I found this, it's almost exactly the same as your last shot.
The hallowing. A moment so old, history can sketch.
You've got some film stills from a print of it.
Of sincerity and wisdom, both as tokens of the Lord's presence.
They could be valuable as collector's items.
The hallowing.
What are these tiles purchased by my grandfather in World War II? I was helping my parents clean out some storage, and we came across these tiles. He served for the US, but we aren't really sure of his deployment or division. He was in Germany during the occupation for 2 years after the war, and he told my dad that he had someone hand-painted those tiles for him while he was there. You can see a little bit of text on the back, and they seem to have a date or code stamped on them, but nothing telling. They were framed separately in Oklahoma after the war, so those are not related. Any idea what these buildings are that are painted? Those are German fireplace tiles, and the landmarks are from the city of Regensburg, the capital of the Upper Palatinate and the largest city on the Danube River in the German state Bavaria. This one is the Old Town Hall in Regensburg, a Gothic building that dates back to the 13th century. And here's a pre-World War II postcard. The other one is the city center, with the view of the Regensburg Cathedral at the back. Here's a 1911 postcard view of a plaza and fountain in Regensburg. Racko started coal mining in Rakovník, Czech Republic. When the 1882 flood in the Rakovník region inundated and destroyed the entire system of promising coal shafts, no one could know that the famous Czech ceramic factories would be born from the disaster. Production started in 1883, and the export of ceramic tiles reached throughout the world. What is this fancy-looking thing? I just found this thing in my grandmother's attic today, and she and I were wondering what it was. The only thing that we know for sure is it was passed down from her grandmother. That, by my best estimate, makes it nearly 120 years old. There is no inscription anywhere that I can see on the object itself, but on the small silver plate we found inside, it seems to say IHS. These are not her initials or the initials of any family members we can think of. If anyone has a clue about what it is, that would be greatly helpful. It's an antique Catholic last rites prayer shadow box. The booklet inside lists a patent date of February 16th, 1909, by the Koenig brothers. IHS was an acronym for the Latin Iesus Hominum Salvator, meaning Jesus Savior of Mankind. He might not be your relative. Back in the day, most people were treated for illness and died at home. Hospitals were not in widespread use, and doctors and priests made house calls. It was fairly common for families to have such a sick call shrine to assist the priest in delivering the sacrament to the sick and dying. The Holy Name altar is one style of what is commonly called a viaticum, referring to the bread of life needed to make the journey to the afterlife. This was also intended for ongoing devotions and not just for times of illness or death. The box is meant to be recessed into the wall. It has a fold-down altar held with a chain and features built-in ornate candlestick holders on the sides. The upper part of the piece is a shadow box Pieta shrine, with Mary holding the sacrificed Jesus. What is this weird tong I found at my grandma's house? It's adjustable and it feels stainless. There are no markings on it, and it is very lightweight. My first thought was a jar opener, but it grips lids in an odd way. It's more elliptical than other circular jar grippers. Any ideas? Please let us know down in the comments. Thanks for watching. Let's make life fun.